Red sky at night, shepherd's delight. Red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning. Red sky, shepherd's pie. An unqualified red sky has an undetermined effect upon the shepherd, symbolized by the shepherd's pie, as we have no way of knowing whether or not this is a meal that the shepherd favors. If we take a census amongst shepherds to ascertain this information, we find that some shepherds like shepherd's pie and others do not. In fact, those that do like shepherd's pie probably only like it because it is named after them, but this is incidental to our survey. Thus, the shepherd's pie statement becomes a perfect analogy to the proverb. The shepherd can like or dislike the red sky, depending on the time of day, where he can like or dislike shepherd's pie, depending on his taste in food. To be more scientific in our analysis, but why should the shepherd's response to the red sky be affected by the time of its occurrence? A red sky is certainly no less aesthetically pleasing in the morning, unless the shepherd has a hangover. Many have concluded that shepherds are drunkards from this proverb. But this is an unfair and superficial analysis. Now, the key to the saying's real meaning is in the rhyme. The rhyming syllables of delight and warning are light and ning, respectively. Put them together and we have the word lightning. It can be safely assumed that all shepherds dislike lightning because it can give electric shocks to their sheep and is extremely dangerous. And since it is the morning red sky that warns the shepherd, it can therefore be concluded that a red sky in the morning is likely to result in a thunderstorm. Night, light, morning, warning, sky, pie. Versification can play a substantial part in the creation of humor because rhyme and meter impose restrictions on word usage, making expression more difficult. The construction of the humorous poem, like the pun, does nothing more than indicate a degree of intellectual ability on the part of its creator. How such a pointless application of intelligence can be construed as humorous will be dealt with later. A snail hid inside a box on a wagon, traveled across America, and ended up lying low in a big city.
Argo, Argo, ale, ale,
Ick. Oh, look! Another memorial plaque commemorating that legendary giant of much disputed height and dwelling place.
Trains and boats and 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 planes and boats and planes and boats and planes and boats and planes.
you using a soft pencil? That is the question. To be or not?
Qui es-tu?
Come again?
Qui es-tu?
Comment? Ne parlez-vous pas anglais?
Non, je ne parle pas anglais. Je suis Auguste Renoir, 1841 à 1919.
Oh,
Qui es-tu?
Fred.
Fred qui?
Bert Lancaster.
Chicago, 1932. Prohibition still in force. Shattered by the death of his vacuum cleaner, Auguste Blackbird Renoir decides to risk a quick slug.
FBI.
Well, the disappointment there for Joe Bugner. I must say there was a 9-year difference between the two fighters, and I must say it showed at the end. So the Norwegian winning that, his unbeaten record intact. The halftime sequence coming up in just a few moments. I want to stay with boxing. I want to look ahead now. Can I remind you of the big fights that IDB have planned for you in the forthcoming weeks? For example, next Saturday, Tony Simpson bids to improve his world ranking in Paris. He's after Louis Arcari's European middleweight title, and that is live at 10:15. Then the following Saturday, Michael Spinks defends his undisputed world light heavyweight crown with Eddie Davis.
The last 2 days of the survey. Mr. Jenkins said today there was no risk to life, but that contact with radioactive material could cause skin irritation. British Nuclear Fuels, the state firm which runs the reprocessing plant, said mistakes have been made by people who should have known better. A 2-inch safety pipe could have recovered the situation after a series of mishaps meant radioactive waste had to be drained from a holding tank.
The high 5 centigrade, 41 Fahrenheit. That's the weather forecast. And it brings us to the end of our programs for this St. Valentine's Day. Hope you've enjoyed them. We're going to close down now, but ITV's back on the air at 6:25 tomorrow morning with Good Morning Britain. But now I'll say good night, London, and leave you with some music.
funny about a hangover? What's funny is that the victim is experiencing discomfort while the observer is not. If the observer did not indulge in the activity which has incurred this consequence in the victim, he can achieve his revenge for missing out on the initial benefits of the activity by mocking the victim's plight. If he did indulge in the activity, but is not suffering its after effects, the observer is in a better position than the victim through pure luck. He will find this situation even funnier as he has got the better of the victim without foregoing any prior pleasure. If the observer is also a victim of the activity, the situation is not funny at all. The humor rests in the assertion of superiority, and the more observers there are to be superior together, the funnier the hangover is. All jokes depend for their effect upon the construction of a situation whereby the joke perpetrator and the audience join forces against the victims of the joke by creating a superficial solidarity, an artificial position of power to promote their own status. Within the confines of the joke situation, jokes inevitably reinforce dominant prejudices and values, but this is incidental to their function. Jokes are a means of self-aggrandizement or reassurance through negation. The joke, like nationalism, enables its audience to feel good through feeling better than someone else. This can be achieved directly or discreetly. Jokes which ridicule sexual or racial groups automatically place the audience in a position of superiority. The joke makes the audience part of an imaginary group with common ideas and interests through deriding those that are not in the audience, or if they are, do not seem to present a significant threat. The witty joke achieves similar ends more deviously, avoiding any specific attack. Nevertheless, it makes its audience feel more intelligent than others outside of the joke group and panders to intellectual snobbery. So, all jokes involve the assertion of superiority, and the discrimination of the joke inevitably reflects the discrimination of society. The number of Irish jokes in circulation, for example, is directly proportionate to the number of years England has been at war with Ireland. Jokes can be racist, sexist, classist, or witticist. But whatever they are always inextricably entwined in history. It should be noted that the teacher's label has now been redesigned so that it no longer reads as ache when viewed through a crack in the door. The E now joins the A in a clever reversal of the archaic usage as exemplified by Caesar and Aesop. The social function of the joke is to affirm that particular abstract notions or repressed feelings are common to the members of its audience. The joke can enable individuals to compare their impressions of reality without having to articulate them themselves. A consensus that a joke is good, usually communicated by laughter, is enough to reassure the audience that its sensibilities are universal. The object of the exercise is to create a feeling of comfort. The absurd joke often creates this feeling of comfort in an indirect way by initially bewildering the audience and actually generating feelings of discomfort. These feelings are played upon until the last moment when the audience, to their relief, are released by the joke and consequently experience comfort in relation to their previous uneasiness. More importantly, they realize that the discomfort stimuli of the joke have been deliberate and that their discomfort was shared. Thus, the comfort effect is doubled.
As these two racehorses walk in a pub. One said, "I've got a story to tell you." Buy me a beer, and he said, "I'll tell you the story." So they sat down. He said, "I was at Epsom the other day, the 3:30. I was losing the race right at the back. Suddenly, I had this hot, surging pain up my bum. Zoom! I won the race. Couldn't believe it. The other horse said, "That's incredible." He said, "That's marvellous." He said, "Exactly the same thing happened to me the other day at Newmarket. 2:15 it was." Right at the back of the field, suddenly I had this hot surging pain up my bum and I won the race. Anyway, there's this greyhound sitting at the next table, so he walks over and he says, hope you don't mind me butting in. I heard the story, he said, but same thing happened to me. I was at the Stowe the other night. I was losing a race, couldn't win. Suddenly I had this hot surging pain up my bum. And I won. And one horse turns to the other and he says, fuck, you know, it's amazing. A talking dog.
But it is not only the search for mental comfort which induces irrational behavior in the human. As our figures show, physical comfort is so important to us that we are prepared to spend an excessive amount of money on the three-piece suite. In fact, whatever our incomes, we invariably spend 2 to 3 times more on the suite than we can afford. Now, what are the origins of this absurd lust for comfort? The problem did not arise until the late 1960s, when a new fabric conditioner was introduced onto the market. Up until this point, the British people were content. But as soon as the new product was launched, unease began to creep into the nation's consciousness. We started to feel that we had less money than before, that we couldn't buy the things we needed anymore. In fact, we simply wanted more things to make us comfortable. The new product, which was launched with a massive advertising campaign, was called Comfort. Every night on television, we were told that we needed comfort, and that comfort was essential to our well-being. We fell for it. But it was not the product's name alone which created this devastating effect. The image on the label was the real trigger, and a subliminal one at that. As we now know, the thing that we need most is not comfort, but sex. The woman on the label, while displaying a blissful facial expression, has her fingers positioned into a familiar gesture, which in the days prior to the height report implied that her contentment had been caused by the activity referred to by her fingers, a suggestion which is reinforced by the first syllable of the product's name, combined with the French meaning of the second syllable. By association, the consumer equated comfort with sexual fulfillment and sought comfort from then on, with disastrous economic consequences. At first we just bought the product, but very soon we went over to buying other goods which represented comfort in the abstract. There were two reasons for this changeover. Firstly, the demand for the product was soon so great that it became very difficult to obtain. And secondly, the product was usually purchased by women, as men were too scared of being branded sissies to go out and buy it themselves. With women bringing home the household's comfort, the male role of protector and provider was subverted. So men were forced to seek and supply alternative forms of comfort to re-establish their power. But because it was sex rather than comfort we were unwittingly seeking, no amount of comfort-inducing consumables could assuage our needs. We spent all our money on these goods and were still dissatisfied. Believing the cause to be insufficient comfort, we demanded more money from our employers to buy more goods. But the employers were powerless to help us, as they were having to spend industrial profits on similar, though better quality goods, for themselves. Things got worse. The amount of comfort-inducing goods we had newly acquired made the occurrence of sex unlikely. We spent more and more time reclining on Draylon watching our electric toasters. And all the time the comfort ads continued relentlessly. Instead of fighting fibre fatigue, comfort made our muscles so weak that we found sexual activity so exhausting that most of us gave it up altogether. Still totally unaware of the root of our discontent, we continued to demand more money for our labours. When this was not supplied, many of us went on strike. And those of us who were more responsible discovered that we were too weak from comfort to break through picket lines. These reasons behind the economic collapse of the last decade were only recently discovered by a Viennese psychiatrist who caught a fleeting glimpse of a comfort bottle while celebrating his 126th birthday in London last year. Fortunately, his age, combined with his short exposure to the label, enabled him to make a proper scientific analysis. His grandson promptly informed Her Majesty's government of his findings, who last month ordered an official inquiry. This is currently being conducted by independent capitalists. As an interim measure, the offending label has been redesigned and rushed into production. It now shows how, after years of excessive consumerism, the woman on the label has been forced to put storage units in her garden, and even so is having considerable difficulty in fitting in her possessions. But government intervention may have come too late. We've been exposed to the comfort label for over 10 years now. Whether our lust for material comfort diminishes in its absence remains to be seen. What is certain is that it will be a long struggle.
A long struggle. In the later stages of making this film, I came to realise that a large part of its humour related in one way or another to alcohol. Unfortunately, the reasons behind this are far from humorous. I regret to say that alcohol has been such a large part of my life for so many years now that I must finally recognise a degree of dependence. The time that I have spent both in consuming the stuff and in suffering its consequences must be quite staggering. It has had an alarming effect on both my physical and mental condition. Physically, I feel persistently lethargic and am prone to illness. My stomach has become disproportionately large, my bladder weak, and my sexual energy, which was never all that great, has diminished considerably. Mentally, I am frequently depressed, find it very difficult to concentrate, and have an increasingly poor memory. Many of these factors have severely impeded the production of this film. Apart from the fact that it has taken over 3 years to make, my muddled brain has found it impossible to deal adequately with what is, to me, the most fundamental and problematic aspect of humour.
What are the reasons behind the physiological phenomenon that we call laughter? Why do both the left and right corners of our mouth curl upwards to form what we know as a smile? Why does the smile open to emit such a curious sound? In Sigmund Freud's book, Jokes and Their Relation to the Unconscious,